during this rather difficult time, what's going on in the world? A lot of us are turning our attention to the virtual world of racing, whether that's iRacing, a set of Corsa, or even Formula One games for that matter. We are all turning our attention to the world of streaming, the world of gaming. It's a big thing that's keeping us kind of going. I would say that, we are missing Formula One, we are missing racing, so we're tuning into streams. Like, we've had the virtual Grand Prix going on, we've had drivers streaming every day, either streaming racing games or just streaming games in general. It's been very, very nice. And one thing that we were probably looking forward to, if you are a gamer like myself and Lyle and other people as well, is the new Formula One game. Now, there's been a few questions surrounding this, like, is it going to feature all the races? Is it going to be released on time? What's going to happen with this? Well, today, as we're recording this, it's been announced that the brand new game will be coming out on the 10th of July 2020, which is a godsend for everybody. Oh, there's something to look forward to. Yes, we might not get any racing by that point, but at least we have something, a brand new game. The 11th edition, I think it'll be on the Codemasters series anyway, or the 12th edition, I think. So, it's been going for some time as well. We've got some really cool features as well. But today, we're not really going to be discussing. We'll be talking about that just for a bit. But what we're going to be doing today is discussing and giving you guys our kind of dream F1 game. Now, we don't know the full features of this game. We've only been told a little bit, so we might say something that might be included in the game, so that'd be pretty cool. But of course, we don't know the full features as to what's going to be included in the game. So what we're going to do, like I said, sit down, discuss what we think would be a nice kind of game that, pretty much an ideal F1 game, really. So the one maybe you guys might agree with it, you guys might disagree with it, but of course, as always, we want to know what your dream game will be, like how the game would pan out, like career mode wise, online wise, like what features do you want to see, what cars do you want to see, do you want to see any classic tracks, just give us a bit of an insight as to what you guys want. And of course, me and Lyle, we do like the games, we do like talking about them as well. But Lyle, before we kind of jump into discussing our virtual, our ideal F1 game, our dream F1 game, you could say. Just quickly, just what out of the series that we've had so far, what's your favourite F1 game that you've played so far since the game started coming out in about 2009, 2010 type of year?
I'd probably say F1 2013 was my favourite because of the classic cars. The introduction then, there was two that you could get, the non-classic version and then the classic version, very much like, the has-been 2019 was. But back then it was, what you're going to do. The normal gamers would just get the normal version. And then the classic car editions came on in 2013. And I can't remember the full lineup that you had. But I do remember that you had a lot of old tracks. So you had Jerez, you had Imola. You also had Murray Walker doing a few of the voiceovers. You had an old-timey garage. It was a massive change. We hadn't seen that before. The games were pretty good, towards then. Obviously, 2010, great game. 2011, good, simple. 2012, amazing. I think you had the paddock in a few of them. 2012 didn't have that, but then you had a few more other features as well. And again, Formula 1 was great in that year. 2013 really stepped up, and I would say that was the first one to really step up. We've had some turbulent years, and of course, Jordan, I know for a fact that you'll agree that 2015 was like crap. Mainly the reason why that was done was because, of course, of the new game and the new consoles, Microsoft Xbox One, and then the PlayStation. I think it was 4 at that point. So they were changing. 2015 was terrible. No career mode. But,
graphic wise, it was a big improvement to what we had on the old consoles.
Definitely, yeah.
But game modes, there was no career mode.
Well, I remember the main thing is, Jordan, just quickly, the main thing is I remember for 2014 was, and it's only a small thing, but as well as the graphics, but when you turn the steering wheel, you could only turn it like that. But with 2015, you could, of course, do the real motions. I also remember as well in 2014, so for example, when you were coming out of a corner, if you were in automatic, you'd be like, new. It wouldn't sound like that because it was V6s, but that's all I can do. And then you would kind of ram on the, if you were revving in one lower down gear, and it would just do that. And then 2015 was more, basically 2015 was, the career mode wasn't there, which sucked. But as an actual, just a Formula 1 game, if you were driving as Seb or something like that, it was good. Then you had a few good years of that. Again, classic cars evolved. I would probably say, John, 2019, it was a great game. I loved it. The first time we got it, It was in Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost edition. For me personally, I haven't really kind of done much of that. I've done a few of the missions. Obviously, I've got Ayrton Senna's, I think it's his helmet, no, his race suit on, like my personal avatar. But then apart from that, I haven't really seen much about it. But the classic cars are good again. The classics, not classic circuits, but like the change of the circuits that you can do. So you can do Abu Dhabi in the dry, in the what's it called, in the light, in the daytime rather. Monaco in the night, which for some reason is like taken off. I remember the first thing I ever saw when I saw the first video I saw of F1 2019. I saw it was Monaco in the dark, and I'm like, that's gonna catch on. So Jordan, what about you? I mean, yeah. So for me, I'd probably say F1 2013, just because it was like the first good game we had, because it featured so many other things, including the classic mode, all tracks, which again we don't have much of that anymore. Had like Murray Walker's commentary, loved that. So what was your favourite? And also as well, like as I said, 2015, what kind of dropped the ball for you in F1 games?
Well, for me, what I like in my games when I'm playing, I only really play two kinds of games, racing and football games. I like realism. I like it to feel as realistic as possible. So like, I'm not going straight into the big teams and winning straight away, which can happen. It's happened before, like Lewis Hamilton, of course. Yeah. But it's not something you see all the time. And I want to try and earn my way into a team or something like that. So the early games for me were like the best. I'm talking 2010. 2010, obviously back in the day when I first played it, it was extraordinary. It was like that game for me is like genesis of my knowledge with Formula 1. Like Silverstone was like the big bang, let's say, and then the game just put all the pieces together. And that's how I knew how all the tracks, I knew all the teams, I knew the calendar, and that game just helped me out so much with the knowledge of the sport. And of course, how you had the paddock, you had the interviews, it was pretty good. Of course, if you do follow my streams on Twitch, you'll know that it's probably got a bit down in my but I'm only kidding. It's a brilliant game. I absolutely loved it when I played it. 2011 was like a lightened version of that. You still had the paddock, you had your garage, you had the interviews with Crofty, which was a bit weird now looking back at it.
We didn't know who Crofty was at that point. I mean, that was 1 year before Sky, so Crofty wasn't even around.
And even Crofty voices the guy in 2010. It's just not looked like him. It's very strange, but still, No. Anyways, but I did notice a bit of a decline in terms of career mode, because I like career mode. 2012 got rid of the paddocks. You had like the car in the the wind tunnel. It looked clean, looked slick. 2013, you had the introduction of the classic cars, which was incredible. But see, I didn't really play much of that. I only played a couple of one or two time trials, but I didn't really focus much on that because again, I was still a new fan in 2013, so I didn't know much about the proper history of the sport. I knew Murray Walker, I knew the tracks, the cars. I wasn't too much clued up on, so I wasn't really big on it. But it was still a good game. But I would say in career mode, 12, 13, and 14 were the exact same menus, same features, young drivers test. It was fun at the start, and then it got a bit boring. It was like, it was whatever. But then, you weren't jumping into it straight away. You weren't jumping into going to Mercedes within your first season, which is for me is unrealistic. But when 2015 came around, I was very excited for it. First game on the new gen consoles. Graphically, it was going to be amazing. There was big plans for it for 2015, for what I was hearing, and then they started announcing features, and they were like, we're going to have this. Oh, okay, we'll have a career mode.
Actually, Jordan, just 1 second. I remember you tagged us in a photo early 2015 about, the new game. And you said that you could talk to your race engineer. And I was like, this is incredible. Because I always, firstly, when I was driving the game, I always used to kind of talk to myself, boxy slap and things like that. And finally, I could actually talk to someone. But I was a little bit disappointed, though, because when you told us this and when you tagged us in it, I thought that it meant that if you bought a headset, with like a mic and that, you could talk, physically talk to your engineer, because of course some games do that. But it was 2015. It's not the year 3010, so we don't have the technology to do that. Where the Xbox can actually pick up your voice. But yeah, I remember in terms of the features you were just talking about. I remember that being a big thing, and that's why I was excited for the game. And of course, as you were saying there, the graphics and a lot of things changed from F1 2014. Yeah, exactly.
So I remember as well, back in the early days, that was something that not just us, but the whole community would like to go, or talk to your engineer. Of course, you weren't able to physically say, oh, by the way, Jeff, come out, explain everything to him. You had a selection of options of to list, and that was an awesome feature as well. But you can certainly expand on that. And the one thing as well about, obviously, including the 2019 game, ever since 2016, it's kind of got a bit copy and paste. Like, career mode's kind of the same. It's the same cutscenes. The race engineer says the same kind of stuff. It's getting a bit... Of course, classic cars being reintroduced, and then like they're implemented in career mode. That's amazing. I love that. But apart from that, it's not much different to what it was back in 2016. So, what do we want from 2020, or just a game in general? Because like I said, there's nothing been officially announced as what's going to happen in career mode. So in 2019 was the first time that F2 was introduced into the games, which was something we were crying out for. However, it was something that we kind of wanted, but didn't, if that makes any sense. So what we were after was a season or even a career where you started in Formula 2 at the very bottom, you do a full season, and then you get a chance to get signed to a Formula 1 team. Of course, you get the option to sign to a driver's academy like Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, go to their one of the represented teams, and then you would have a better chance of getting into Formula 1 with like Alfa Romeo if you're Ferrari, or Williams if you're Mercedes, you know, that kind of thing. And that was really cool, but you could only do 3 races in Formula 2. You had the Spain one where I think you had an engine problem and you had to let your teammate through. The second race was Austria where Butler hit your front wing, that came off, you had to pit, go back out and then catch him again and overtake him. And then the final one was a 6-lap race around Abu Dhabi where if you finished ahead of Butler, you were the F2 champion. A lot of the time you were F2 champion, you get to sit down with the agent, and in an office, and she says, we've got a couple of offers from teams, you know, just go through them and have a good decision. When I was sitting there for the first time, I'm like, yes, here we go. I'm going to get an offer from 1 or 2 teams, or even 3 teams to get with the seat. The problem that I have, and I've had this problem for a while, since 2016, was the option, but you have the option to go to one of the big teams. Now, firstly of all, you're going to say, well, Jordan, don't go. Of course, I don't go. That's the thing. I don't go to the big team first. But the option is there. And I feel like, well, I could easily just go to Mercedes without kind of... I could have failed my 3 objectives in the F2 season and still be going to Mercedes. That to me doesn't make any sense, because that would not happen. And I was just like, I want that kind of that feel of earning your way into Formula 1 by only being offered a seat, or even another feature I'm gonna get to in a minute. You know, being offered by one of the smaller teams, so like your Williams, your Haas's, your Alfa Romeos, the teams that are near the back, near the midfield. What I would like is a full season with Formula 2. Choose your team like you normally do. And then just do a full season, you know, of course the option to skip, and then you get to the point of where, right, okay, sit down with the agent, you get a choice, you get an offer from 2 or 3 teams, you know, obviously the teams that you're part of the academy for, apart from the big boys. So let's say you're part of Ferrari Academy, you get an offer from Alfa Romeo, you might not get one or you might get one from Haas, but you won't get one from Ferrari themselves. You've got to earn it, you've got to unlock it. However, if you let's say like you might get some objectives, like there's a certain level you need to get to by the end of Formula 2. If you get to that level, you get an offer from one of the teams of Formula 1. If you don't, you get a reserve driver role, which is something that used to be in the F1 games back in the day. You had, I think you had a random test you had to do, then you got either a chance to race for a team or have a testing role, which I think would be a little, like, a bit of a realistic way to come into Formula 1. Like, that's what would normally happen sometimes. Like Nicholas Latifi, he was test driver for Williams for 2019, then he got to see for 2020. Other implements happen. Anyways, and then of course, that's what I somehow really like. Of course, it'll be boring, but I mean, you could skip sessions, but of course, your XP won't go up. Then you might not get a seat. You might get released by the team. So it just makes things a little bit harder to get into Formula 1. So like, when you get to Formula 1, you've earned that right to be there. Of course, you don't have to go for the test role. You might get an offer straight away. If you excel in Formula 2, you win every race apart from 5, let's say, for example, or whatever, you win loads of races, you win the championship by a country mile, you get a seat instantly with Formula One. Like, yeah, brilliant. But if you don't do well, if you're a driver who's not that good, me included, then you will get an offer as a test driver that you get to do objectives at different teams. Then your results depend on how the team progresses, or how much points and how much progression you will have when it comes to when you do get an F1 drive with a said team, or with that team that you're with, and it'll have an impact on like R&D development. Like, you might have more parts to unlock, you might have less parts to unlock, you might get more points, you might get less points, and that's something I would really, really like to see. That was a bit of a rant. Lyle, does that sound good to you? And what would you add on that? How would you like to see one of those features like into Formula One in the F1 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great rant, Jordan. Just on top of that, I was going to say that. So you said, if you haven't earned your right in Formula 2, maybe you get another offer for Formula 2. What I mean is that, like, if you're racing in Formula 2 for Prima or someone and you don't do very well, okay, it's not like you're going through the motions. You get another season in Formula 2 to earn your right, but you definitely have to earn your right. I think from the 2019 game, one of the things that I noticed was, so I've done it 3 times now since I got it. Obviously, the first time when I got it back in July 2019, then second, and then obviously third time, to restart my career just because it's a bit of fun. And the thing that I've noticed is that all 3 goals are exactly the same. Like, for the first one, you're in Catalonia. I think I've actually chosen Prima for all 3 of them. Okay, so fair enough. I'm not helping it. But you're in Spain, and I've forgotten the exact permutations for it. But obviously, you're not going to win the race, and it's about 6 laps to go. And the choice is to let Lucas Weber, your teammate, through. Again, are you going to beat him? Are you not? Are you going to let him through? Because it just honestly, that's the decision. So the radio is telling you to let him through. I think first time I didn't, second time I did, then of course third time I didn't. And then that's the same for like Austria. I forgot what it is for Austria. And then Abu Dhabi is the race. Depending on wherever I finish in Abu Dhabi, I literally could crash out of the race, which I haven't done, so I'm just guessing. But I have finished in different positions, and every single time is exactly the same. Exactly the same dialogue from Lucas. Exactly the same from Devon. I've won the title. Lucas is fighting with Devon, and then everything is exactly the same. Maybe apart from the offers that I get, but exactly what Jordan just said. That I get if I'm racing for Prima, I'm in the Ferrari Junior program. But of course, my team's Red Bull. I want to go to Red Bull, but it won't matter because, for example, at the moment, I drove for Prima. I did an amazing F2, 3 races, and I'm driving for Toro Rosso. Now I'm driving for Red Bull, but I drove for Toro Rosso from driving for Prima. Second time I think it was Renault. First time I think it was Haas, so fair enough. But like the second and third time didn't matter. There was no change to what happened there. And again, like Jordan, full F2 season in different scenarios. One of my favourite games at the moment, just recently got it, was Madden 20. Really, really great from that. So they've got a feature. They've got the normal franchise, which of course go through, become a quarterback for whatever time you want, for whatever team you want, so like New England or whatever. Or you can also go through the franchise route, so you can basically earn your right to be in the NFL, where you go through a team. So I've done this twice now. You start off, you are in college, you join a team. We join one of 7 teams that they have offers of. And basically you go through 2 games, so it's a national championship semi-final and final. And then that goes into getting you to NFL. But the thing is that I've noticed, and I've done this twice as I've said there, I've done different things different times. And depending on your actual performance, you get different things. So for example, in my first go, I signed for the Texas Longhorns. We won the national championship, of course, which isn't too hard. I think they do want you to win national championship. I think if you didn't do that, you would be kind of screwed. Because, for college, especially a quarterback, you kind of need to. Then I went to the Combine, Indianapolis, didn't do too well. I didn't get an invite to the draft, and then I ended up with the Oakland Raiders. Second time around, I went with the University of Southern California. Won the championship, won both games, won the championship, went to the draft, did really well, got invited to the draft, and I got signed in the first round by the Miami Dolphins. So everything has changed. And look at this, but like going through that scenario, everything was different. Like, all the people spoke different things to us. There was different options of what to say. Like, I'm a team player, I'm a this. I remember you get a question from the Redskins guy about where do you sit on the bus. If you chose the front of the bus and the back of the bus, the outcomes are actually different, including what he says to you. They might not be in the the long run. You might still get the same team, but that's the thing. It's all different choices. And I just wish that Formula One would be like that. Like, if you did, so for example in Spain, if you didn't let Lucas through, then that would go on your... So I was saying to John before we recorded, if you, for example, didn't let Lucas through, your, like self-driving, your independence, your I'm here for myself kind of thing, I don't really know what that word is, but that kind of XP would go up. Like your ferociousness, not your sportsmanship, but like your independence would go up. But then your sportsmanship, your teammate work, your teamwork would go down. And then obviously if you let him through, your teammate would go up because like you're helping the team, your kind of supporting role would go up. But then of course your actual independent thing would go down because that's what you're doing. I just wish that they would add in loads of different things like that. So when you sit down with your race engineer at the end of the day, she has offers based on every single thing you've done in the F2 races, because at the moment, Jordan, it just seems like she's just giving you options for teams. Like, you're going through the motions, like, you buy the game, you do this, you do this, you do this, you go through the motions, which of course isn't like Formula 2 at all. Because, I mean, look at, in real life, obviously, look at Nick de Vries. Amazing drive this year, last year, sorry, world champion. No doubt in anyone's mind that he was going to win it. Incredible driver, and then goes off to Formula E, because it's not that he can't find a Formula 1 seat, but it's not as easy as, for example, Codemasters are making it look. And if you're not a Formula 1 fan, you might think, Nick de Vries won last year, why is he not in Formula 1? And why is Latifi, who didn't win Formula 2, why is he in Formula 1 at the moment? So it's not real. It's not realistic. And I know it's not Madden, obviously, just giving a bit of an example, but that's very realistic. I do really, really like that. That Formula 2 thing is just going through the motions, Jordan, and that's the thing. I mean, in terms of realism, it's just not there, is it? It really, really isn't. But obviously, going into Formula 1, when you get into Formula 1, so I started off with your team. You get your team objectives. You have XP as well. So, for example, as I was saying there, it isn't a done deal. So if I win with Prima, it's not that I don't unlock just Haas, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari. I almost unlock everyone. But obviously my reputation is higher at Haas and Alfa, and less, if I can unlock Ferrari, if I'm good enough, it will be higher there. But of course it's just Haas and Alfa Romeo really at the time. But if you go there to your team, you get objectives, of course, you do have reputation to maintain every single time. But about every 4 races, you get the chance to renew a contract. And you get the chance to move around teams, Jordan. So every 4 or 5 races, you do that. I mean, in your mind, is that really realistic? And of course, what would you say to that? Because of course, we know that other drivers move around. So for example, Lewis can go from Mercedes to Williams. But in terms of you going from different teams to like that, I mean, I know Dietrich Mateschitz with trading places might disagree, but what would you say to that? I mean, in terms of realism, where do you think that should... Is that realistic? Or
I remember it used to be you could do that in older games. You might get a contract offer from like one of the big teams during a halfway point of the season, and if you took it, you would move to that team for the next race, which at the time I thought was a bit unrealistic. I was like, why would that happen? That would never happen. But probably since the trading places between Max and Daniel Kvyat, was that not kind of confirmed to me that, well, actually this can happen. Obviously it was a swap, but drivers can change teams during the course of the season. Of course they were interlinked. It's not like Perez would go to Ferrari during the mid-season and then Charles would go to Racing Point. You know what I mean? That would never happen, but in the games that's what it meant.
Yeah.
Again, a bit like what I was saying before about being offered to go to the big teams at the start. You don't have to go. You don't have the option. But that's the thing. The option's there. And it's like, but I don't want the option to be there. Like, I want it to be like, all right, change your objectives. That's the bit I don't mind. I don't mind the whole, it's like it's a renewed contract. It's not really a contract. It's just changing your objectives and how fast you want the development to be. I think that should really kind of do it on its own, where the team should evaluate you and go, right, okay, this is how you're driving, you're doing well, we're going to up your objectives to qualifying from 12th to 10th, and from 10th to 8th for the race. And this is what it's going to be for, like, in terms of speed, for the parts to be made, for how many points do you want to get. And I think that would be quite cool, rather than you doing it, which I know might not make any difference, but it's just like, because sometimes where like, you'll go, okay, I'll try this deal, then they'll go, our negotiation was not successful. Please try again. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't want to do this. I want to play the game. I don't want to be blabbering on bloody negotiation contracts. I just want to play. And like, yeah, I think as well, if you're like, for example, like, I think what would be a really cool feature, right, is if you're at Toro Rosso, well, mainly Toro Rosso, I would say, right? Oh, sorry, AlphaTauri. Sorry.
No, we can't call it. Well, technically it's AlphaTauri, John, but we can't call it Toro Rosso at the moment. That's who I was with. To be honest, just quickly, that's probably the only one that would actually make sense in terms of trading places. But like realistically, like just imagine that you could change teams, just so many times in your career. It's absolutely insane.
Another feature as well that we'll talk about is, of course, the driver transfers during the game, which for me is a really cool feature. I love that feature purely because when you've done like 6 or 7 seasons in career mode in the past, all the drivers would still be the same team, same thing, or the only driver that would change is the driver that you're replacing at that said team.
Kimi Räikkönen would be 58 if you played 10 seasons.
I mean, back in the day, of course, with licensing and stuff like that, and contracts and stuff, of course, you couldn't change it, which was a big, really? But in 2019, they brought that in, which was incredible. I remember the first time this was kind of confirmed to me was when Arva did a video. Well, I think it was the day before it was released, the game for everyone, but he already had early access because he works with Codemasters, or he's got a partnership with them, and he released an image of Hulkenberg going to Racing Point and Perez going to Renault, and I was like, what? I thought that he did that as a joke at first, but when he kind of announced it, that drivers could transfer teams during the course of the season, I was like, that is amazing. That is so good. That is amazing. Up until you play it yourself was a big in the nads. It was like, hang on a minute. I had one where Raikkonen went to Red Bull during the course of the season from Alfa Romeo. And I'm like, what? Why? And I would just get these random driver transfers, which would be ridiculous. Like Vettel going to Williams, like, that would never happen in a million years. But, we asked for it. That's what we got. I'm not complaining. I'm kind of complaining, but I'm not. But of course, I did discover this later on in the game where there is the option where you can turn off mid-season transfers and have them for like off-season transfers. So like when the game finishes, the game will mix up the grades. So for your new season, there'll be different drivers at different teams, which is realistic. That would happen. Fair enough. One thing that I'm going to add in as well to my kind of dream game alongside the whole F2 feature is, I think a lot of people will want this as well, F2 drivers to be promoted into Formula 1 with their representative driver academies. So, prime example, Mick Schumacher. If the game decided, right, okay, Raikkonen's a bit too old, let's put him out, we'll put either Mick in, we'll put Eilert in, we'll put in Schwartzman, and maybe at the same time as your F1 career, you would have an F2 career going on at the same time. And then depending on how their results do and compared against, let's say, like Kimi Räikkönen's, who's to say if one of the drivers isn't doing well in the game, gets swapped out with the rookie driver, which is, again, a bit weird, but it's not, that for me wouldn't be stupid with everything that's going on. In terms of drivers dropping out and another one coming in, that would happen. And like if you let's say if you're not doing that well during the season, you could say, right, okay, this is your these are the drivers that are in the team that could potentially replace you if you don't deliver to your objectives, which adds a bit more pressure. Like, okay, I could literally be kicked out and replaced by somebody else. But eventually, it's going to be Hamilton's going to get too old, Vettel's going to get too old, and Raikkonen's going to get too old. Then they should be replaced by Lundgaard or Ticktum, or you know what I mean, like those kind of drivers in Formula 2, and that would make it even better. So you're racing with the future essentially, but of course it would mean, well, John, if they get promoted to Formula 1, who's going to replace them in Formula 2 if they got the same season? I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Maybe here's one: have default drivers. Because do you know how in Football Manager, for instance, Football Manager, if you can play how many years? You can play as many years as you want in Football Manager. There's been people who's played 200 years into the future in Football Manager. Eventually, all them players are going to die in the game.
Hashtag realism.
In the game, all right? Calm down. And eventually, that the game will regenerate a random name, a random player, random whatever backstory. That's what they could do in Formula 2. Have a random driver come in there that could potentially replace, Mick Schumacher in Prima.
Or I've got another option, Jordan. The Codemasters could make avatars of us, and we could drive in Formula 2.
That would be cool.
How about that?
Have like a. That'd be cool. That
But I know what you mean. Like, have. But it's not so much that. It's about promotion and things like that. And again, that's that. I mean, when we talk about the realism side of it, it's of course we want it to be real. It's a little bit like Drive to Survive. It has to be kind of just normal general racing for the people who aren't really big Formula 1 fans. But of course, if you are, it has to be quite realistic. Of course it isn't, because it's kind of, we don't know where Mick Schumacher is going to end up. But of course, if you're going to say something like Hamilton's going to go from Mercedes to Williams, then you could have a potter about and say, well, do you know what, this is what we think could happen to Mick. And also, it's good publicity for the F2 drivers, isn't it? To have, people like the big ones, so like Mick Schumacher, for example, but the other guys like, Sean Gelael, we don't know where they're going to end up. Wouldn't it be good that to see like Sean Gelael and... another smaller name in Formula 2, at like a big team like that? I think that would be quite good. That, I'm on board with that, Jordan. I do like that.
It does sound like a good feature, but of course, I know that what I said earlier about the whole licensing thing about because obviously sponsors are attracted to said drivers, and if they're moving teams, and they might not be happy. But the work around it in F1 2019. And by the sounds of it, they haven't stopped it for F1 2020. So maybe we could put in a randomly generated driver in Formula 2. But one thing as well that I'm going to push now, I know this won't be added because obviously we can't have too many features in the game at once, because for the next game, what they're going to add, they've got to add it in gradually. But this is what I want as well.
Yeah.
I'm being greedy. I am being greedy here. Formula 3. I'm being greedy. I know.
Porsche Super Cup as well.
That might not happen, but they have got a Formula 2. I love the Formula 2 cars. We asked for Formula 2, and now we're going, please, sir, can I have Formula 3?
You know what I want to see? Do you know what I want to see in Formula 2? So how obviously some Formula 2 races get some good attendance, but especially for the Saturday night ones, which is that the feature race on the Saturday night? I think it is. There's not many there's a little bit more fans there, apart from till the Sunday morning race before the actual Formula 1 race. What they need to do is they need to tone down the amount of fans in the grandstands, and also, as we're on the topic of fans, they need to make them more realistic as well. I mean, I know that obviously we've come a long way from the fans that just go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down and wave their hands around like this and round their hand around like this, and have generic flags that aren't even in Formula 1. Like, somebody will have a Chilean flag, or an Afghanistan flag, or a South African flag. That's the best one. Who is South African in Formula 1?
They might be from South Africa. We're repping South Africa. Woo! It is weird.
I just love that. Like, there'll just be there'll be a random South African flag there, and also as well, if whatever nationality you're driving on, there's very few flags of your nationality. There needs to be
how in Silverstone you have them big poles, and you have people with flags waving Hamilton or Vettel or Verstappen. There you go. Have them added. Get do you know for the Dutch Grand Prix, maybe in the future, or even Austria, get the Orange Army out.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. That's what they need to do for Austria. That grandstand, incredible. In front of the bull, and then on the Kemmel Straight, the Dutchy corner, they need to cover it in orange. That's what they need to do. And then obviously that'll be like Formula 1. That's incredibly realistic. That, but But yeah, I wish we could get like to that realistic point. But yeah, I mean the crowds have come a long way from them just bobbing up and down. Azerbaijan are the best ones. I always think Azerbaijan have the best fans. Stand right next to the barriers and just don't move. Like, oh, they're absolutely class, man. But yeah, so yeah, there we go. Formula 2 progression into Formula 1 and then Formula 3 as well. Maybe throw in a bit of Porsche Super Cup as well.
We are definitely being greedy if we're going to ask for Porsche.
So of course, we're not actually driving the cars, and it can get a little bit boring, doing a full season with one team, because of course we only really have the liveries. They're all the same cars at the end of the day. So of course, moving from team to team is just kind of what you want to do. But in real life, that doesn't work like that, does it? You've never really had a driver to go from team to team to team to team to team. And one of the things I was wondering is, or one of the things I'd kind of like to add, but I wouldn't. At the start, I said that, like, for NFL, for example, you have the franchise where you can just dive straight into, being a quarterback for New England Patriots or whatever, the big teams. Or you can go through the slower, more realistic, progressive route, which, of course, is, the franchise. And then you end up being, quarterback for Miami, and then I'll obviously work my way up from that. That's the same with Formula 1. So the one thing I'm just going to say now quickly is that I would love it to be like that. So you have two buttons, really, on the start screen. The first one is directly into Formula 1, because I was going to say that, as Jordan said about, you could just go straight to Mercedes. That is, of course, done for the people who aren't really Formula 1 fans or just getting into the sport, Lewis lovers, or just the people who just want to get into his car and win. And then they can go down the pub and go, oh, look at me, lads, I've just won the first race in Australia. Oh, what car you in? Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. There we go. So obviously that's why. So Formula 1, you can have that as one button, but then the second one is obviously the Formula 2 progressive 1 year, because what we're talking about is like a full season of Formula 2. It'll take a long progressive route, and it will take you literally, in terms of man hours, probably about 30 hours, 40 hours to get to, a decent team, and then about another 30 on top of that to get to a bigger one. But when you're there, you can easily go from like Haas to Toro Rosso to Renault, or even Haas to Red Bull, or even just Red Bull at all. And the chance of you moving teams is insanely, ridiculously unrealistic. I mean, in Formula 1, 2017, you're driving at Williams, and the second season you're driving at Haas, and the third season you're driving at Ferrari, then Red Bull, then Mercedes, and it doesn't work like that. So what I think you need to do is that I think in the realism side, you need to sign for a team. So, for example, you sign for Toro Rosso. They offer you 40 million, no, that's not ridiculous. They offer you £15 million for 3 years, all right? Obviously, you're not getting any of that money, but the contract you sign is for 3 years. And this is the same with football, with Madden, for example, because with Madden, actually, my first team, I had a 6-year contract, but I could easily demand a release at the end of the season. And that's the same with Formula 1. As we've just said, every 4 races or whatever, you get an option to move teams. And actually, you can even move back to your team when you're done. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's like an indirect being on loan in football. So when you sign with like Toro Rosso for 3 years, you are with that team for 3 seasons, 3 full seasons, right? So you think, that's fun, but what happens if I'm bored? What happens if I get a season in and I'm bored? Like, I'm doing badly, but I'm bored. I want to move teams. I want to just move teams for the livery changes and for the fun of it, because it's my game. Well, you can move, all right? We're going to let you move. You can demand a release, which, we're going to call it, like, demand release. But as you do that, we're not just going to go... That woman's not just going to walk in with the incredibly British voice, which like makes you quiver. I don't like that. She's almost as annoying as that guy who says that he can't take the G-forces on his neck. Like, do you remember 2017, the neck guy from 2018? 2017, the neck guy. The guy who's got all of these classic cars in his living room but can't drive them because of his bloody goddamn neck.
I forgot about him. I forgot about him.
Neck. His bloody neck, honestly. He can't take it because...
He hates it.
Oh, I can't take you, but your neck. Come on. Anyways, so, what's the one there? So, we're not just going to sit down and go, fair enough, we'll rip up your contract, you can go somewhere else willy-nilly, no problem. If you want to demand a release, that's fair enough, but your reputation goes down. So you've got a bar that you've built up, reputation of a drive, of a full Formula 1 driver is at 70%. you're driving for Mercedes, okay? You demand a release to Ferrari, big rivals. You go down 50%. That's a massive, massive hit because we're saying you've still got another 4 years left on your Mercedes contract. You're breaking that contract, leaving the team, and you're going to a rival, a main rival, so we're going to dock you 50% of your reputation. Or, like, maybe you're not docked, but obviously, like, Formula 1 will, you know, kind of fine you 50% by thinking what are you doing? Why have you just moved to a main rival driver? E.g. Sebastian Vettel in 2015, moving from, you know, a big rival to a big rival. Of course, if it's a lesser team, like, so for example, if you're moving from, like, Haas to Racing Point, it might only be 10%. If you're moving from Red Bull to Renault, you might only lose like 5%. Maybe you don't lose anything at all. Actually, no, maybe not that. But yeah, maybe 5%, because of course Daniel Ricciardo did that. We didn't really mind. But that's how it works. And in that way, it's realism. Because that is what would really, really happen. Okay, yes, fair enough, in the real world, if you wanted to break a contract, if you were an athlete, you would, of course, there would be a buyout clause, which will be a lot of money. We're not playing for money because it's a video game, so we'll use reputation. But you're given something, you're gambling something to go somewhere else, and that's what we are looking at right now. And that's what I think should be realism, Jordan. And of course, as I just said there, you know, some people might not want that. Some people might just want to go directly into Formula 1, which I'm like, okay, fair enough, that can happen. But for the real Formula 1, you know, lovers, for the gamers like us, I think that should be an option. So, I mean, what do you think of that idea? You know, you're at Toro Rosso. You signed you wouldn't read that after Toro. Yeah, you've signed a 2-year deal at Toro Rosso, okay? You have a good season at the end of your first year, or you have a bad one and you're bored. It doesn't really matter, but you just want to leave after your first year. But you're like, I've got to do another season. I can't leave. I've got to do another season. Like, what do you think of that idea? At the end of the day, also as well, you might end up signing a 6-year contract to Mercedes. What would you do also as well, just theoretically, if you were in this position? You could sign a 6-year deal for Mercedes. You're in a Mercedes car, but you have to do 6 full seasons. And if you did want to leave to, like, Ferrari, for example, you would have a massive hit on your reputation. How does that sound for my, you know, F1 DS Lyle edition F1 2020 game by Codemasters? Obviously, you've heard Jordan's. Now this is Lyle. This is Lyle's trademark. What do you think of the idea? I think
they should implement like length of contracts. And again, like if you break that contract early, then it will not only it decreases your reputation with your team that you were with, but also decreases the reputation of other teams, because they're going to look at it and go, well, hang on a minute, he was there for 3 years. After 1 year, he broke the deal. That means he's not really committed to that 3 years. That makes him a bit untrustworthy. So they'll go, no. Obviously, they will offer you to sign you because, well, if no one offers you a contract, then the game's finished essentially. Which that'll be pretty rubbish because you want the game to go on as far as possible. But
oh yeah, also actually I just want to just one quick thing, Jordan. I'm glad you said that because I just thought of that again, taking an idea from Madden, right? If you demand a release, you're a free agent. And if nobody's very, very much like football as well, but I don't think it works like in this in FIFA. If you demand a release and nobody signs you after, you know, about, I think it's like theoretically about 6 stages in the NFL before in the game before, if nobody signs you at the end of your free agency, you are done. You have to retire and that's it. So Jordan, just kind of to add on to what I was just saying there, what happens if you do that? What happens if you demand a release, nobody signs you, but when you demand your release, you can't go back. So you're with Mercedes, right? I love this idea. So you go back to you're at Racing Point, okay? You know, midfield or McLaren. You demand a release, okay? So as you do that, it comes up and says, "Are you sure?" Because if nobody signs you, you can't go back to McLaren because you've now told McLaren, you know, see you later. Or you've told old Force India and Nico Hulkenberg standards, see you later. You've done that. So you've left McLaren, John. Nobody signed you, and you can't go back to McLaren. That's it. You have to retire your character and go back to the start. How does that sound? I mean, is that a bit too harsh?
Yeah, well, but it probably adds that element of it makes you want to stay there more, I suppose. But I suppose what you could do is maybe obviously, I don't think they'll. I mean, it would be cool, like you said, right? Maybe to start the game again. That would be pretty awesome. But maybe for some players that that won't appeal to them. So what could be a better idea on that is like the idea I had before about the whole reserve driver rule. Maybe, right, okay, you still play the game, but you're not going to be a full-time driver. You're going to be a reserve driver because you're taking the mick out of us. You're going to be, here's a contract offer, take it or leave it. And, well, maybe have the option to take it or leave it. Maybe go, nah, I'm not going to take it. Then maybe retire your character. Then you can start the game again. Yeah. But and obviously, if you do take it, then you can just reroute yourself into another academy, into another team. I think they should have that element. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Lyle. Yeah, and obviously that it adds that element of pressure in a way. Like you've got to deliver, and you've got to stay there and deliver your objectives. And if you stay there for 2 years at a Mercedes, okay, you've got the option to move. Red Bull have come in with the contract offer. Do you want to go to there, or even a team that? And again, keeping the one thing as well that I mentioned as well about the R&D table. That is really good. That's a cool feature. Having to get them points and then do the practice program, making practice more. Just to do practice, because back in the day you would only get given one R&D thing to do per 4 or 5 races. And then, other than that, you would just skip practice and do qualifying, which is fine, but also adds that element of, well, using up your power unit more because you've got to do practice now to do these programs. And again, it's more realistic because that's what happens in real life Formula One. You get given objectives. Okay, do this and do that. Obviously, not as extreme as what it is in not as extreme as what it is in real life, but it's still go through the gates, do fuel, do ERS. Race day prep and qualifying laps and all that. It's pretty good. So yeah, I would definitely keep that as well. And maybe if a team who like Haas are at the top of that leaderboard in like 5-6 seasons, they'll come in with the contract and then just let the game generate it for itself there. And I think have a 2-year contract as well, or they might come in with a reserve driver role. Maybe if you're like you're just mediocre in the midfield, go get a offer as a reserve driver and maybe change teams and. Or even, right, this will be cool. Maybe not cool, but I think this will be a cool feature. If this is your first season in Formula One, and then you don't do well at all, you get sent back to F2.
Good.
You've not met our objectives.
No,
get out. Get back to F2.
No, I like that. I mean, it's a little bit like football, Premier League, and the Championship. I don't think we've seen a driver do that. Almost,
there's been a couple. Actually,
Formula 2.
Roman Grosjean did that.
Yeah.
2009. He signed with Renault for 2009, replacing Piquet Jr.
Yeah.
And then he went back to GP2 for 2010 and 2011. Won the championship in 2011.
Wow.
Went back to F1 in 2012. Roberto Merri's done it.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that.
It's crazy. It's been a couple of times done that.
Yeah, but John, I just want to say one quick thing, kind of last thing, talk about this. It's not for what we want, it's what's rumoured or almost, announced to be in the Codemasters game for July. And again, what do we think about it? Which of course is your Formula One team. Now the tagline that came out was "Be the 11th team," which I think is really cool. Again, if you have F1 Mobile Racer or whatever it is called on the App Store, for example, you can create your own team, just change the name, change the livery, things like that. But of course, it's online, it's a video game edition, so you'll be able to do a lot more about that. Now, we don't know too much about what you can do, Jordan, but in your opinion, what do you think you should be able to do, and do you think that will be a good feature to add? Because as you were saying there, they're always thinking about things to add and things like that. What do you think this will entail, and do you think it actually will be as successful as it sounds? Because of course, in terms of what we've seen, F1 2013, it's a classic edition. F1 2015, brand new game. They've always added in things, and this is definitely the thing to be I would say at the top of that. So, what do you think the Be the 11th team is going to be for this year's game?
What I was saying before about the 2015 game, how bad it was. There's been a progressive feel with the F1 games. Like I said, they got the paddock back in, that's good. Then they got the classic cars in, that raised the bar. And then of course you got the online fit, esport, that raised the bar again. You can create your own car, your own overalls. That's raised the bar. This has raised the bar again. This is something that everyone has begged, cried, screamed for many, many games. to create your own team.
Yeah.
And yeah, they kind of added it in with in the newer games, because like you can create your own, like I think obviously your own livery, you race against people, but that's not what we asked for. It's good, but it's not quite Carlin. It's but this is absolutely like this is big. This is the game changer for the games. Like honestly, like this is massive.
Yeah.
So I remember like playing Pro Evolution Soccer. I could create my own logo. I can create my own team, my own kits. I love that feature. Formula One have just pulled it out of the bag with this one. So from what I know, is you can create your own. There's like I think you'll have like two options. So you can do career mode as normal, or a feature called My Team, which is your team. Hence the name.
My Team.
My Team. It's my team. It's your team.
My team.
And then like you can create your own livery, but I think it's like you can develop the team. In terms of objectives, so like it's like if you play Motorsport Manager on the mobile, that's a brilliant game. You can put your team from the bottom of like the lowest ranks in like the single seater category, and you can work your way up. You can upgrade your factory, you can upgrade parts, you can sign drivers. I think that's what they're going to do with this one. Like I think you can get your engine suppliers. You can choose Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault, Honda. A sponsor. What sponsor could there be? Obviously, there'll be maybe Pirelli or Codemasters, or F1 Debate Show. I mean, yeah, and hopefully they'll create like a good list of sponsors. And I remember that was a little feature that they used to have back in the day of FIFA 05, FIFA 06, FIFA 07. I remember like the some newspapers were on there, and T-Mobile was on there as well. Wow, back in the day, that's the throwback. Wow. T-Mobile. Any kids? If you watch this and you're going, what's T-Mobile? We're too old. We're far too old.
Ask Blockbusters what T-Mobile is. They'll or go in your local Woolworths and they'll help you.
Oh dear. Oh wow.
Which by the way, I remember being in year 8 and going into Blockbusters. Year 8, so not Blockbusters, Woolworths. I remember being in year 8 and going into a local Woolworths. So there we go.
And if you've just went, what's them? To all them three, you've just made us feel very, very old. That's if you live in the UK, because I don't know if it's like a worldwide thing, but you've made us feel very old.
It's a worldwide thing, but I can tell you just randomly that I know that there's apparently the oldest Blockbuster in the world, or like the only one that's standing. There's a one in Alaska, in the capital city of Alaska. I don't know if that's true. Everyone from Alaska, hit us down. But
I heard that too.
Oh yeah, of course. So yeah, I think the team will be good, Jordan. I mean, we always talk about it. There's obviously a lot of always talk about being your manager and things like that. Do you think that will be like a manager role? So you won't be a driver. So again, I don't know how other games work, but like obviously sometimes you can be like a managing player. But do you think you can, instead of, let's say you don't want to drive, let's just say you don't want to drive at all, do you think you can be a manager of a team? And again, if you can't, would you want to do it, not drive, a bit like Motorsport Manager really, would you just want to manage
I think that would
team?
be a really cool feature. Like you can go the option to do My Team, you can develop the factory, develop the car, but then get an option, do you want to drive or do you not want to drive? And I think like maybe do the option that you don't want to drive, and I think that would be pretty cool, because I love football. Well, I say love. I like Football Manager. I've liked that game for a long time, and I was loving for something like that for Formula One. There has been something like that in the past, with like 2000, 2001, but that was well before my time. In terms of look like loving Formula One, and we've never had anything like that. We've had Motorsport Manager, but it's not the same, nowhere near the same. So having something like that in Formula One would be absolutely awesome. So I'm excited for this feature, and a lot of people are. I was watching Arava's reaction video, and he's over the moon by it. And judging by Twitter's reaction, it's a big hit. And I think this is a game changer. It really, really is in terms of the world of Formula One games. But one last feature I just want to add on just before we go, and something that we haven't touched on, is classic cars. So for this year, Michael Schumacher. It'll be the Michael Schumacher edition, because last year you had the Pro Senna edition, which was okay. I mean, you had the overalls and online, you could have the cars, but it wasn't anything brilliant. But the Schumacher edition looks awesome. I think you get the 91 Jordan, the 94 and 95 Benetton and the 2000 Ferrari. They're the new classic cars coming into this year, plus the other cars that they've had in recent years. That's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
And of course, classic tracks is something I would love to add in again, like they did in the old days. Again, nothing's been said on that, because like I did say at the start of the video, not everything's been announced. So the things that we've said in this video could actually be added in to the real life games. And if they do so, we might do like a reaction video of that. That'll be quite cool, because we've got nothing else to talk about, I suppose.
Yeah.
But for me, right, this is... now, you probably know what I'm going to say this. There's one driver I want an edition of.
Yeah,
and
I know.
I want the game to go as far back to these generation of cars, which is the 60s. Obviously, Jim Clark. I would love to drive his 63 Lotus, his 65 Lotus, the Indy 65 Lotus. Like, please, Codemasters, I want to drive Jim Clark's old cars. Please. That's the one thing I would add. I love the classic cars, I love the classic tracks, but if I want to add in one thing, is that I want to drive Jim Clark's old cars. That for me, a classic is done.
Well, there we go. Well, listen up, Codemasters.
I want this. So, anyways, Lyle, final words from you. So, obviously, do you think that your structural of game is? Do you think that's worthy of, selling to like people who do like the Formula 1 games? Do you think, you're happy with everything that you've said in like your ideal game?
Yeah. I think I'm happy, yeah, but of course, as we said there, it's very much a divide between the guys who just want to get the game and have a bit of fun with it, and then obviously the mad, the mad Formula 1 lovers, the ones who look for realism. And it's very similar to Netflix's Drive to Survive, guys, because, for example, we've heard a lot of you guys say, you've caught, things that aren't right. So, for example, we'll be talking about Melbourne when something about Silverstone will appear and it's not in order and things like that. It's a little bit like that. They've got to make these games appeal to the guys who don't really like Formula 1 as much and just get it as a racing game. Because, to be honest, I've seen this being sold. Well, it's not that I've been seeing, but this gets sold as a normal racing game. Like if you go in a game or whatever, or wherever you buy your games from now, Woolworths, you'll see in the Woolworths blockbuster stand that this game is listed just as a racing game. So, but no, I'm happy about that. And of course, last thing, Jordan, we need to say, we did a collaboration with Aldas the other day, and we didn't say it on that video. So we need to say the words that he forced us to say, which is, if you haven't already, please go and subscribe to Aldas. Now, the reason I'm saying like that is because Aldas has, he's a massive YouTuber. I can't imagine you'll have seen us if you haven't seen him. But of course, guys, if you haven't checked out Aldas' channel, please go and check it out if you haven't. And also, we did do a collaboration with him a few days ago on the fact of Formula 1 done behind closed doors. Is it viable? Is it possible? And also, do we want to see that? Which I love that video. So yeah, go and check that if you haven't already. Go and check out Aldas' channel. And then in terms of my game, Jordan, I'm very happy. I mean,
absolutely. I think my game is looking very good. So obviously the Lyle edition, F1 Debate Show, the Jordan edition, F1 Debate Show. You can get our own characters. You can drive with us. You can
get our own storylines.
Get your brain out the gutter for this one, but you can play with us. Get your mind out the gutter for that one. That's disgusting.
I haven't said anything.
I just know what you people are like watching. Anyways, that's been... to be fair, we have rambled on for this video because I knew we would for this one because there's a lot of features. To be fair, we probably missed off a couple of features, but that's where you guys come in. Let us know your features for your ideal F1 game. What do you want to see implemented, added into future F1 games that hasn't been there already? Anything that everyone's saying, or do you have something that's very unique that could possibly happen? Let us know in the comment section below. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And like Lyle said earlier, go and check out the video that we did with Aldas, talking about having no fans in Formula 1 races. What's the impact of that? What do we think of it? Can it happen? Can it not? And of course, F1 24/7 dropped this week. Talking about things that, is trying to script the barrel essentially because there's nothing much to talk about. And of course, catch our videos for next week. We've got some more fun videos coming out, I presume. Hopefully starting a new series which will be coming out next week. Can't wait to start that one. But anyways, guys, watch what you're doing. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. If you're new around here, then please like and subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.